Let's dive in. I think we're going to have a lot of questions at the end, so I encourage people to show their curiosity in Q&A. And welcome everybody to join us today. I'm Ada. I'm the VP of Marketing and Partnerships at Northbeam, and brought together a great panel of people to help navigate some uncertainty through all parts of their business. So we have Marina, who is representing from ShipBob, a great advocate on navigating uncertainty through a lot of changes that are very pressing on several brands right now. And she's got a great perspective on different things that brands can do and strategies to execute. And then we also have Ryan representing from Logical Position. He's got great perspectives on multiple brands, how they're adjusting their ads, what they're looking at in different strategies for media, and again, how to roll that out and make it work for their brands. And last but not least, we have Zach on the Northbeam team. I'm going to hand it over to him to walk through some of the things that we're seeing at Northbeam. We've got a pretty remarkable set of very disruptive and innovative brands on the Northbeam platform. And so our data set is certainly a great reflection of what a lot of e-commerce and D2C companies are struggling with right now. I think agencies alike, we're hearing a lot of questions about, is it me? Is it happening to everybody? Is it just my industry? How else are others responding to this? So again, looking forward to your questions, but at this point, I'll hand it over to Zach to dive in.
Yeah, totally. Great to meet everyone. I'm Zach. I lead the platform partnerships team here at Northbeam. Drew, if you want to change over to the next slide here. But thank you all for attending today. Today, we're going to go over several key topics. So trends in the ad auctions that we'll go over. We pulled over some year-over-year data that I'm going to get to in the next slide here. Rising CPMs and cost per clicks and platform adjustments across these. Shifting focus of attribution models, and then we pulled in our great partners from Logical Position and ShipBob to go over some global logistical shifts and changing consumer expectations. Next slide. And the next slide as well. So awesome. So here at Northbeam, we've been closely monitoring the changes in ad auction performance. Across the platform, we're seeing significant shifts, especially in rising costs in places like TikTok and Facebook. As advertisers, this means it's more important than ever to fine-tune your strategies and adapt quickly. So again, a plug for the Media Buyer newsletter. If you want to scan that QR code, you can get this on a weekly basis. But we wanted to pull over a year-over-year analysis that we're seeing from Q1 of last year versus Q2 or Q1 of this year. So to go a little bit deeper in terms of where we want to start here in terms of ad auction dynamics, we're seeing rising costs and fluctuations. Platforms like Facebook and YouTube are seeing major increases, likely due to the heightened competition and evolving platform algorithms. TikTok's also bucking the trend. TikTok CPMs actually decreased by 15.58%, signaling a shift in demand or increased supply of ad inventory. In terms of cost per click trends, Facebook's cost per click decreased 12.26%, while many other platforms like Google, TikTok, and Pinterest are actually experiencing higher cost per click. Click-through rate increases across key platforms. So YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok suggest that users are engaging more with ads despite the rising costs. And then one that's particularly interesting in terms of share of wallet and budget allocation for performance. Meta still dominates this across all of our clients today. We see that 61.8% of ad budgets are still going directly to Meta. YouTube, however, we see a large shift, 69.8% increase in budget share. TikTok with strong potential as well as some other key platforms that we did not include here because there was no Q1 results from last year, like AppLovin. So if you want to see some of those results within our weekly newsletter, that is something that we release on a weekly basis. In terms of the way that we're seeing this and the way that brands are getting ahead, we're seeing a strong shift in terms of course, being at Northbeam, multi-touch attribution and media mix modeling is what we offer, but A lot of our brands and agencies are leaning into attribution models that can help them scale new channels. So something that we've came out to help with this is our clicks and views enhanced model, where we're getting deterministic log level impression data from ad platforms to help clients scale on these channels, on view heavy channels like TikTok, Snapchat, and AppLovin. So lots of exciting stuff. You want to go to the next slide? Go to the next slide. Now I want to introduce Ryan Garrow of Logical Position to go over his take in terms of what he's seeing across his clients and a little bit of background on Logical Position itself.
Thank you, Zach. Glad we could be here. And Logical Position, if you don't know, is a digital agency. We focus on traffic on the internet. If you can invest in traffic on the internet, we probably do it. We've got about 7,000 active clients, about 700 to 800 employees in the US, depending on the size of our sales org at any one time. We sit on lots of data, and we're an extremely large e-com agency, which is the main focus of what we do.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And then in terms of ad platform shifts, what are you seeing across your client base? Are you seeing your brands deviate from Meta and Google? What does channel expansion look like, channel diversification?
I think it runs the gamut. So we have clients of all sizes, and I think on the small side, um, there's little tests, but more than likely they're probably pausing some channels to invest in more channels. Whereas larger clients tend to be more advanced and they're more willing to invest in tests, and that's really what I advise most. Even their small brands should be testing more, but on the larger brand size, and I'm larger brand, usually you're north of 50 million. Um, you've got to have a testing budget that regularly sits in your marketing line items that says we're going to test certain things regularly. Every quarter should have tests. And you mentioned AppLovin, and I think AppLovin's been doing some great things in the last 8 months since they went into ecom beta. We've seen in a lot of our MMM models with our clients, AppLovin is consistently in that mid upper funnel, driving a lot of awareness. And even in some, it's focusing. Even in some of our brands, it's even last click, which is surprising considering the model. But they seem to have a very solid algorithm for that. And then we've also seen with some of the, I'll just say TikTok issues with an administration, that there's been some hesitancy there, I think, to really dive into the deep end with TikTok with some unknowns. I think that's settling out, and I think there actually was some news over the weekend about potentially Oracle helping out there. But um, I'm confident that things will change. I joke that that's one of the only reasons I have a job is because things keep changing. And so what we are using today as a mix of uh, advertising mediums for our online brands is definitely going to look different in a couple of years. And so only the companies that are continually testing and leaning in are going to be at the forefront of that. And I think we see the changes can happen very, very quickly. When we had the iOS update a few years ago and Meta just tanked, it took them a year or two to come back and figure out how to operate in a new tracking world, but they're obviously doing phenomenal. I mean, the growth we've seen in Meta over the last few years is just crazy. I think a lot of brands too underestimate Microsoft, and I think that's going to be a big push over the next couple of years. I expect them to take some market share from Google, just because of some of the unique things they have as far as data and insight, especially with their LinkedIn platform that they still haven't figured out how to integrate. I think once that happens, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah, totally. We're seeing the same thing. And then in terms of all of the AI-driven algorithms on various ad platforms with Advantage Plus on Meta, PMax on Google, and Smart Plus and GMV Max with TikTok. How have you seen your brands or your agency as a whole lean more into creative strategy, given the reliance on AI with these ad platforms today?
Yeah, it's been I'll say interesting. It's been fun, but also very challenging. I look at it as fun because I don't have to actually push the buttons in the accounts. I think my teams would probably say it's not as fun. uh, but I think creative has become much more important on that mid and upper funnel than it was even a couple of years ago. Because you have these algorithms, specifically the Advantage Plus on Meta. It's a phenomenal algorithm. It does really, really well. Um, and so the levers you have to push and pull inside the platform are less now than you had a few years ago. And generally speaking, I like to have more control and more levers. That's kind of the name of the game and how I look at accounts, especially on Google. I want to have as many levers as possible to try to take control from the platform. That's my goal usually. Meta, they've eliminated a lot of the levers to push and pull, and it's a pretty solid platform to a degree. And what you really want is that control coming into your creative. Then, like if you have better creative, the algorithm will like you more than your competitors. And so you need to be testing and measuring what that creative looks like that the algorithm likes. And so we've had some of our clients start looking at performance creative agencies. That's been something relatively new in the space over the last few years, where the agency gets paid on the performance of their creative, and we manage the ads piece. We don't actually do a lot of the performance creative work, because there's companies that are better at it than we are. But I think that is what the future is going to look like in a couple of years, probably. I think YouTube is really starting to break out with some of their TikTok-esque, Reel-esque performance marketing vertical video things. I'm bullish on YouTube and being able to jump into that. It's called social, but again, YouTube, I don't really interact with it personally as a social platform, but it's trying to compete there. And I think a lot of the ways you get performance creative in there is going to be a big opportunity for a lot of brands.
Yeah, totally. We're seeing the same thing across our top clients. When I look into our top growing clients year over year, they're the ones that are investing heavily in creative as well as diversifying their channel mix. They're leveraging agencies for performance creative, as well as they're experimenting with new AI creative generators to scale hundreds of new creatives on a monthly basis. So lots of great updates with that. How do you view new attribution models and your clients? You already touched on some of your clients still using things like last click to run their business, but how does LP view attribution models in terms of getting an edge on scaling new channels?
I mean, I've been doing this 15 years, and attribution still makes my brain hurt. And so and the problem with it is there's no right or wrong. And I really do like right, wrong for many things. But and so what we've seen in the clients that are successful in growing over the last few years, they have the ability internally to accept multiple attributions. So if you've got an exec team that is stuck on last click, I probably won't see you as a brand in a couple of years. In fact, there's a particular shoe company I've been talking to. They built their own MTA, multi-touch attribution tool, internally with an engineering team over the last few years. Then the engineers quit. They have nobody that can run their MTA. And I'm like, well, what are you using for your tracking? Well, it's kind of broken, and our Google Pixel's not firing, our Meta Pixel. I'm like, oh my gosh. So you're struggling. So you have to have I always recommend a third-party tool that the executive team can buy into, specifically the CFO, and say, this is our source of truth, and we're going to look at multiple attribution funnels and first click, last click, multi-touch, linear, time to, I mean, all of these have a place to play, and it helps guide it to a degree on which platform we need to be pushing. And then you measure, say, okay, if we go more aggressive mid-funnel on Meta, what impact does that have on all of these different attribution funnels? And can we say with reasonable confidence that was a good investment that helped lift the brand? Like, we invested an extra $500,000, and it looks like that grew our business more than $500,000, so we like it. But having a final answer of the type of attribution you should be using in your brand is, I think, a death sentence for a brand.
Yeah, totally. I think when I think of new Northbeam customers, it's great when we talk to new brands that are still able to run their business on last click, because they've figured out that Meta performance or paid social performance is going to look a lot lower than some lower funnel channels like Google and so on. So from a Northbeam perspective, it's great if we chat with a brand that can scale their business to 9 figures on last click, because they understand that they may not be seeing the full value Where it becomes an issue is when brands are used to seeing platform reported numbers of 5 to 10x, and then they log into Northbeam and they see a tenth of that. We try to educate our brands and align their executives teams with their agencies, with their media buying team that may be using different models to make different decisions, whether it's a daily optimization or more of like a quarterly review. But at the end of the day, they're all aligned on the same data. So we want to make sure that that is crystal clear there. So good stuff. And then in terms of cost increases across your clients, I'm sure you have a pretty good take across your 7,000 clients, but what are you seeing from a cost increase standpoint, and what are you doing to optimize budgets?
And it's going to come across the board. In fact, I've been harping on this or beating on this drum for a while that Google costs are going to continue to go up. So brands that are reliant on Google traffic are going to be in trouble because you have to be able to hit less expensive traffic, which is also like funneling traffic from Google to brand terms on Google, which are cheap, or Meta to Google brand terms. And so it's diversifying, but also understanding that to the aggressor goes the clicks and the traffic. So if you are apples and apples with a competitor, as far as margins are concerned, the brand that can be more aggressive on Meta and Google to get that traffic is going to win those auctions, and they're going to get that traffic. And to do that, you probably have to figure out you have to have optimized conversions. So you have to have CRO going on the site. And I have this whole wheel I walk a lot of brands through where traffic, convert, and then lifetime value. If you aren't impacting that lifetime value through email, SMS, loyalty programs, membership programs, there's some really cool membership programs out there that go beyond loyalty to bring them back into profitability, you're not going to win. You have to be able to lower that ROAS on customer acquisition. If you're in the beauty space or supplement space, you've already been there. You've been losing money on the first order for years, if not decades. And you've figured out that if I don't have that solid lifetime value plan in place, I can't get the customer. And I think a lot of brands or industries are now starting to get into that, and it makes a lot of companies nervous. Marketing teams, finance teams get nervous, and at the end of the day, you're going to have to keep investing heavily to acquire a customer, and you got to have a plan for repeat purchases.
Yeah, totally. I think email and SMS is a huge one. We see some brands, some very high AOV durable goods brands that they have a hard time scaling day to day on paid social, considering some of their purchases are multiple thousands of dollars. So a strategy that we often recommend our clients and agencies take is optimizing towards cost per email sign up, cost per SMS sign up, to measure a year-over-year growth in owned and organic channels, and shifting some of that retargeting spend to more profitable retargeting through owned channels. So we see pretty similar. Awesome stuff, Ryan. Anything else you want to plug on Logical Position before we take it over to Marina?
No, if anybody wants just to talk strategy, feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm on LinkedIn. You can get my email or contact info from Northbeam. I like talking strategy and growing brands. So even if you don't work with us, let's help.
Awesome stuff.
Cool. Thanks so much, guys. Really excited to be here. So just a quick overview of ShipBob. We're an e-commerce fulfillment company. We do have global fulfillment centers, as well as about 45 based in the US. So our goal is just to help e-commerce brands be successful online no matter where they're selling. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today, is how to kind of de-risk and diversify your supply chain.
Awesome stuff. So tariffs are definitely a hot topic within e-commerce today. A lot of our brands have been heavily affected. But what's ShipBob's stance on the tariffs, and how are you helping brands navigate some of these challenges?
Yeah, so tariffs are nothing new, but I think they have become, a four-letter word in the last several months for a lot of e-commerce brands. Historically, textiles were the one category most impacted by tariffs, and so textile brands, apparel and things like that, have been using some of these loopholes, such as Section 321, to fulfill their orders for years. Now that tariffs are impacting other categories, I think a lot of brands are scrambling to understand how to de-risk or mitigate risk within their supply chain. There's so much back and forth. We joked when we got on with Ada that, like, okay, well, at least nothing changed over the weekend in terms of tariffs. So our recommendation is make sure you are, first of all, double clicking to every component of your supply chain to make sure that if anything does go south, you're ready to be agile and to pivot quickly. In terms of fulfillment specifically, you're going to want to put your inventory in the country that you want to be selling it in. It seems more expensive. In the past, people have fulfilled into the US from Canada, from Mexico, leveraging the Section 321 program. Today, that's just too risky, even though Section 321 is here today. It has been really volatile in the last couple of months. And so our biggest recommendation is going to be put your inventory where your end customer is. That is the best way to de-risk your supply chain and not be subject to this ever-evolving world of tariffs. And don't wait until somebody makes a regulation change, because the migration of physical inventory takes time, right? You want to make sure that it's migrated correctly. You're minimizing the disruption to your business. In order to do all that, you do have to move earlier than when, any new regulation goes into effect.
Awesome. And then in terms of fulfillment challenges, I know ShipBob has an inventory placement program. It'd be awesome to chat a little bit about how dispersing inventory is helping brands drive more profit.
Yeah, absolutely. So inventory placement, essentially the program takes your historical data, identifies where your end customer is, and breaks it down at a SKU level of where you should put your inventory. So usually brands start with a bi-coastal approach, East Coast and West Coast, to get closer to their end customer. A little bit more of a sophisticated brand, a brand with, kind of depends on your SKU position, is going to be able to leverage even more fulfillment centers. We do have 5 regions in the US that we focus on. And so with our inventory placement program, we're going to analyze all of your end customer data, make recommendations on where you should put all of your inventory, and then actually send the inventory there using ShipBob trucks. So we want to make sure that your end customers, or your inventory, is as close to your end customers as possible, so we can reduce the total fulfillment cost, reduce the zones that you're doing, reduce transit times, because right now every single line item in your budget needs to be scrutinized. And so if you can save even a few cents on your total fulfillment cost, that really adds up.
Yeah, totally. We see the same thing in terms of minute changes in performance can have a major impact in terms of driving profit from an advertising standpoint. So obviously, I know that a lot of brands are spending 10 to 15% of their revenue on fulfillment. So having even a small lift in terms of percentage can drive huge amounts of profit for brands today. So awesome to know. And then I know Section 321 and the de minimis loophole is something that was a big change. Could you go over how ShipBob is helping brands navigate through some of these challenges?
Yes, absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to put on the record that neither I or anyone at ShipBob is qualified to give any tax or tariff advice. You're going to want to consult somebody who's a professional in this space. We do partner very closely with Elliott Davis. So if you need more information, we're happy to connect you with them. But generally, the way that Section 321 was working was fulfilling orders into the US from other countries. In today's uncertain world, we don't know which other countries are going to be able to continue to fulfill orders into the US. We've heard about retaliatory tariffs, obviously inventory from China being taxed higher. So again, it's a fantastic program while it is here to stay. I think for the sake of de-risking the business, you do want to not rely wholly or put all of your eggs in the Section 321 basket today. Just given the state of the union, I think it's a program that could come back and be reliable. It's done great things for customers in the past. If you're doing Section 321 now out of Canada, you can continue to do that. But again, this regulation can change overnight, as we've seen so many times in the last several months. So I would always encourage folks to make sure that they have at least a mitigation strategy or a redundancy plan to be able to move their inventory quickly, or keep a portion of their inventory in the countries that they are fulfilling orders in, just to be able to kind of turn off the Section 321 switch and turn on the domestic fulfillment switch.
Awesome insights there. And then I know global expansion is a big thing with ShipBob having fulfillment centers across the globe. A lot of our top Northbeam brands, they have sites spun up in several different locations: Australia, EU, UK, and so on. And it's a great way to continue to drive growth past 9 figures once they've maybe maxed out some of their TAM or have a plateauing growth within the United States. But how does ShipBob typically set up brands for success in terms of global expansion, especially with all of these changes?
Yeah, great question. So the 3 biggest challenges with global expansion are navigating customs duties and compliance regulations, managing the international shipping costs and transit times. and then localizing the customer experience. So for instance, if you've ever tried to ship inventory into Canada, you realize that the label requirements are going to be different than the inventory coming into the US. So there are many options. You can work with a company that provides DDU. ShipBob has DDP support, duties delivered paid, so you can fulfill your orders from the US into any country across the world. It's really important. That's the way we used to recommend folks test a new market is try DDP. But in today's world, that's also risky because you don't know what the inverse tariffs are going to look like as well. So we do have fulfillment centers in the UK, EU, Australia, and Canada. So right now, I would recommend if you've got the SKUs available, if you have hero SKUs, put those in those local fulfillment centers and test the markets. You don't have to put your entire catalog in a different market, but you can test the market with your best-selling SKUs or the SKUs that you think are going to be the most impactful in that market. Start that way. It's a little bit riskier. You do have to diversify your supply chain a little bit, but that's one of the benefits of being with a partner that is able to offer that kind of service is that everything lives in one dashboard. You evaluate the performance of those SKUs in one dashboard. You compare it, your rates, your transit times, your performance against your US or whatever your main territory is. And so you're able to understand if that's a market that you want to play in now, or if you want to be a little bit more conservative with where you play today while things are uncertain.
I was muted. Super interesting stuff. And then from a tech and automation standpoint, I'm particularly interested in how ShipBob's evolving here, especially with omni-channel merchants that are scaling across Amazon and their Shopify store and TikTok shop, B2B, retail, wholesale, and all of that sort of stuff. But from a tech and automation standpoint, how is ShipBob evolving and helping merchants today?
Yeah, we consider ourselves completely channel agnostic. We will help merchants be successful online regardless of where they're selling. So one of the ways we help is with our hub and spoke model. So before, whenever merchants needed to send in their inventory, they would spread it out to all of the fulfillment centers that they were using. Today, we do all of that with our 5 regional hubs with that inventory placement program we touched on. We do all of the receiving at the hub. The hub does not do pick and pack. It is just focused on receiving. So you've got that accuracy of receiving and you're moving a lot more quickly. We then move to a pick and pack location. We feel really strongly that the most error prone part of fulfillment is inbound and outbound. Pick and pack is rather system automated. And so we wanted to make sure that we have full control as a standalone product. So hub and spoke has been really important. And then similarly, ShipBob Logistics is our network of sort centers. We stay close to where the carriers are. We do all of our own sorting on behalf of the carriers. So that also allows us to keep our costs really low and pass on those savings to our end customers. Again, everywhere you can save is fantastic. And of course, we're using highly automated state-of-the-art sortation equipment.
Awesome stuff. Anything else you want to plug from ShipBob?
No, we just want to say that we're here to help any commerce merchants, support them regardless of platform, regardless of location. I think we really want to reduce any of the friction in fulfillment.
Great stuff.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. I know we're a minute over. We've had a couple interesting questions come in. Just wanted to see if anybody else had any questions before we wrap up. Perfect. All right. Well, we will share emails with recording. Thank you so much, Marina. Thank you so much, Ryan. Really helpful, and look forward to seeing more questions come in over email and follow up. Thanks so much, everyone.